Hello, you are listening to Cali Chats, a healthy living podcast with a goal of helping you find true happiness within your mind, body, and soul. I'm Jessie Cali, and it is time to get real. Hi guys, I've gotten a lot of questions about how I am even doing this podcast and the hosting platform, so real quick, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about Anchor. But before that, I do want to give a trigger warning for sexual assault and the stresses behind finding a therapist. I do talk briefly about that. We don't really get into the meat of the topics, but just wanted to let you guys know that I do discuss it a little bit in this podcast, just in case that is something that would be triggering for you. Hello. Happy Tuesday, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Cali Chats. Today, we are going to dive into story time, as usual. And I'm going to give you a little bit more insight into my life and share some exciting news with you all. You are the first to find out this news, so consider yourself very, 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 very special to me. And again, as usual, we will finish up with some of the lessons that I've learned, and hopefully you too will be able to apply this in your life somehow for the better. So let's get started. Once upon a time, a young, spry LSU alum decided she was done with the South, and embarked on an adventurous career journey, if you will, full of brand new places, travels, and people. If you haven't guessed it already, yes, we are talking about me, your girl, Jessie. I once was, a very young, spry alumni, whatever they call them, of LSU, and I remember I graduated back in 2014. I was done with the South. I'm done sweating. It's hot down here. I want to see what this snow is about. And I started the interview process for this job. I got it. It was pretty amazing. I got into this sales and marketing development program with a company, Fortune 250 company, and started right out of the gates in 2014. And you'll never guess where they moved me. And I didn't know where it was either. I remember it was my birthday, July 23rd, I got a call. And they told me, hey, Jessie, you got the job. We 100% want you. We just don't know where yet. And I was like, I'll go anywhere. Just don't put me in the South. I'm done with the South. And so these beautiful, beautiful people put me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And if you're one of my friends from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I'm not knocking Pittsburgh. I'm just saying, I didn't even know what it was. I won't even lie to you. I literally went, what? Okay, cool. What's up? Like, where is it? And I know some of you are probably eye rolling, being like, didn't you know what the Steelers were? No, I didn't. Like, I had no idea where Pittsburgh was. And so I just said, sure, I'm down. And I can again remember vividly calling my family and texting my family group chat and saying, guys, I'm moving to Pittsburgh. And they were like, girl, you know it's like really cold up there. I was like, what do you mean cold? And they're like really cold. Like sometimes it's below zero. And I was like, what? But I did not say what to them. I just looked at them and said, I got this. I want to leave the South. Okay. All of that to be said, I was ready. I was ready to embark on a new adventure to get out of here from what I had known and what I had always come to know. And I wanted something new. I wanted an adventure. And I think a lot of us do that. I think a lot of us get stuck. We get stuck and we just want to roll along, move along, find somewhere new because for whatever reason, we're done with the past. We're done with whatever we were doing before and we want something new. Sometimes we do this because we're running away from something. Sometimes we're running to something. In my case, I was always running to a higher job level or a higher salary. I wanted more. And I also now look back and realize I was running away from my sexual assault. And that was something that I had held back for a long time and wasn't really putting in the forefront of my life. My mental health was a backseat to me and my career was the front seat. So that being said, in the words of Dorothy, there's no place like home. That's the title of this blog and we're going to circle back to that a lot of times. So before I continue on with the story, I wanted to note that. But also, now I want to share with you guys one of my favorite quotes before we continue, and it's from John Green. You spend your whole life stuck in the labyrinth, thinking about how you'll escape it one day. and how awesome it will be. And imagining the future keeps you going, but you never do it. You just use the future to escape the present. Let that one sink in. You just use the future to escape the present. A lot of times we're running so fast, we forget to enjoy everything about life. We forget to do the small things that matter, and you just run towards this goal or job or something that you think you need. And problem is a lot of times when you do reach that goal, it doesn't help, right? You just keep wanting more. Similar to last week when we talked about if you don't feel like you're enough, you're going to keep wanting more. It's very similar in your life when you keep running away or traveling in my case or living in so many different places. And that's a big part of my story is how instead of just sitting down, writing down my problems and figuring out what I needed to do in my life, I kept running towards a new job, new people, new friends, new things. And that was amazing. I will never, ever regret anything I've done in this life because it has given me a lot of great people. It's given me a lot of great experience. I've seen lots of the world. So it's amazing. I'm very thankful. But I realized that I was just not willing to do the work at the time. And I wasn't really willing to write down what was important to me and what I actually needed. So getting back to my story time, where we left it off last was that I had graduated from LSU, scored this entry into a great Fortune 250 company, and was living my best life in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't know what it was about me being in this program and trying to rush through it, but I got in my head that it was like if I was faster at it, if I got through the levels faster and climbed the ladder, that for some reason that would make me happier, I guess. I guess that was kind of my thought behind it. So I lived in Pittsburgh for 2 years. The first year I did the first role in the company. It was more of a sales, marketing kind of role. And then the second role I got in 11 months, and I was super, super proud of that. I was like, your girl, 11 months, already management. Gosh. Do you ever think back to when you were like 22, 23, and you're just like, wow, what an annoying human? Sometimes I feel that way. Anyways, so it took me about 11 months, got to the management position, which meant the next year in Pittsburgh, I was leading a 4-person team in the Ohio Valley. So that was like Pittsburgh, Michigan, Ohio, what else is over there? West Virginia, Kentucky. So I managed people, but I also managed all of the stores in the area that our products were at. And that was a very rewarding job. It's a very rewarding job. I got to work with a lot of different people. I got to meet a lot of people. I learned a ton, but I still felt so unfulfilled. There was just still something in me that was just climbing the ladder. I needed to get out of it. Like I kept just running through these positions. And the next job I got was in brand marketing. And that was my goal. My goal from college was always to eventually be in a corporate marketing position where I got to be the creative person who made, I almost said a bad word, made stuff happen. Stuff. That's what I'll say. I made stuff happen. I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the shot caller, you know? And I had finally gotten there. It took me about a year. So that was 2 years with the program. I graduated out of the program and I got to corporate. And that meant I got to move to Baltimore. So that takes me to my next location of living. Baltimore was a little bit more pleasant weather-wise. It had more seasons, and it wasn't as cold. We had snow, but it wasn't nearly as crazy as Pittsburgh snow. Pittsburgh snow was like not something you can prepare for. I had to go buy a coat because I did not own a coat that was Pittsburgh warm, okay? I had to go buy one. But Baltimore was different. That one gave me some brief memories of the South with how it could get kind of hot, but not nearly as hot as Louisiana. Anyways, I digress. I have gone all over the place with this. But I got to Baltimore. I had gotten to corporate, and I was so excited. I was like, here's the thing. I was like, so excited. I climbed the ladder, and I was ready to make it big. I was so ready. I was so excited. Like, I can still remember getting into my cubicle, that cubicle, that cubicle with those high walls, just living the life, man. I just remember walking in being like, yeah, I've made it big. 24, or whatever age I was. No, I was probably like 25, whatever. Anyways, what a rude awakening corporate America can be, am I right? Anyone else feel me out there? Up until this point, I kind of felt like I was my own boss. I traveled around, I had a company car, I met with clients, I was my own boss. I was also working out of my home, and no day was the same before this. I had different days every day. 2 years later, when I'm sitting in my cubicle in this actual office, in my actual cube, it was overwhelming. It was still exciting. I will say that. It was definitely still exciting, but it was so overwhelming. It's overwhelming when you feel watched, when you feel like there's always people coming at you from every direction. It was weird. It was definitely weird. I stayed in this role on the brand team for a little over 2 years. And to date, it's one of my favorite positions I held with a full-time job. I loved working in branding. I love marketing to its core. It is my thing. It's why I built this business. I have all these different branches. There's Cali Creates, which is the blog. Then there's Cali Consulting, which is me. You can hire me for marketing needs. You can contract me out for your company, things like that. Then there's Cali Careers, where I help you find a job because, trust me, I know the pain of trying to find a job. It is not fun, okay? So I have all these different free downloadables and tools that you can use to find a job and just some tips and tricks. And then also, I have Grown at Home, which is my branch of plant stuff because I'm a plant mom, love plants. And then lastly, Cali Chats is the new segment that I created within the last, as you know, month or two. That is the podcasting and vlogging segment of the business. If you ever have any questions about Cali Creates LLC, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can find all the information you need on the episode info or just listen at the end of the podcast. Anyway, I have gone off track again, but we are back, we are here, and we are going back to the story. So I was in that brand job and I loved it. So why did I leave it? Well, as I said earlier, corporate America was rude to me, okay? And I do think I was getting to the point where I had been with this company for a while. It'd been about 4 years, and I wasn't seeing growth anymore. And also, when it came down to my mental health, I had not made my mental health a priority in my life at all in the last 4 years. At all. Work had been literally my entire life. It had become everything to me. My family was super far away from me at that point. My friends were pretty distant at that point too. I had started pushing a lot of people away because I was dealing with my sexual assault. And that was something that was really painful for me. I had pushed a lot of people away and I wasn't ready to really dig into that. So instead of doing that, I had ran to new jobs. I had ran to new promotions. But when I wasn't getting that next promotion, guys, I worked my butt off. I was working hard for that promotion. It had been 2 years. And like I had before, of course, I know, I don't want to sound like a spoiled brat being like, yeah, it'd been 2 years. Where was my promotion? But I was being promised it and it wasn't coming. I had been promised multiple times over and over again that was coming and it never came. I was getting frustrated. So now, not only did my mental health suck at home, but my mental health started to suck at work. Everywhere I turned, I was just miserable. And it was time at that point that I had to start thinking about how can I fix this, right? And at the time I thought, oh, quit my job. That's going to do it. How silly, okay? Let me just tell you before I continue on, if there is any chance of you just avoiding your mental health right now and you're trying to distract yourself with either people or things or jobs or whatever it is, take a look at your life, okay? If you feel like your life is out of control, but then all of a sudden you feel better because you got a new job or you met a new person or you're dating someone new or all these different things, that will be a temporary Band-Aid for sure. You know, I always felt great when I started those new jobs and those new positions for about a month or two. And then that feeling came back in, that whole stuck in the future's going to be better. Everything's going to get better. If I do new things, run to new things, it's going to get better. It doesn't. Life will not get better until you choose to make it better. Period. End of story. It will not get better until you choose to do the work. And I wasn't choosing to do the work. I wasn't even choosing to see that I had a problem. I was at the point where I just was avoiding it so much that I hadn't even identified with it. I didn't even look at my assault at the time as a tragedy. I was blaming myself. And that's terrible. Please never do that. If I can save you from one thing today, please never blame yourself for things that have happened to you that are completely out of your control. Because it's not your fault. It's terrible what's happened to you if you've had things in your past. There's so many things that can affect your mental health. And your mental health is not your fault. The things that you feel and the things that are going on in there, it's not your fault. But you got to work on it. So I didn't. Coming back full circle, I didn't work on it. I gotten to the point where I just found a new job. I quit my last job, found a new job. Of course, before I quit, I had a new job lined up. And it was amazing. I thought it was amazing. Like in my head, I was like, this is great. I'm going to start this new job. It was literally a 3-minute walk from my apartment. So that was cool. And it was just a new opportunity. It was more in digital marketing. And prior to that, I had been more in branding. So I was there for all the experience. I wanted to fill up my marketing toolbox. So I ran to that new opportunity. So what do you think happened? What do you think happened? Did I just run off into the sunset, joyful, gleeful, and just live my best life? Nope. No. Lord, no, that's not what happened. What happened was I was still a dang train wreck. Like, I was choosing to not work on myself, and I was choosing to just find these new opportunities, find things to fill that void in my soul and in my heart and in my mind and everywhere that was frustrating me. I was like, this'll do it. A new challenge will do it. But it didn't. What did help me was some friends and therapy, people, God, like all those things were amazing. My faith brought me through. I had really kind of become empty for a while. And so my faith was something that pulled me out of that, but also therapy was the hugest thing that helped me in the beginning for sure. I had a friend actually, and we'll get more into that on another episode. I'm going to have another episode that's purely dedicated to my depression and the fight I have with that and the ways that I started therapy and all that. So I won't get too much into that, but basically I had a friend that gave me her session. And if you hear me out there, Joe, thank you for that session. She knows that I am like forever grateful to her because I was having so much trouble finding therapy. And if you know the fight with that, you understand what I'm talking about. It is hard to find a therapist. It's actually not super simple to find one. You would think, I'm ready for therapy. It's just going to happen. And that's not always the case because like you, like me, like everyone out there, there are people that need to talk to someone. So it's kind of tough sometimes to find not only a therapist, but also a therapist that's licensed and into what you need because they all specialize in such different things that you want to have someone that specializes in your mental health issue or what you want to talk about. So it took me a long time. I could not find anyone, and I literally would be sobbing, guys. I would have to email another person. I would have to call another person. I would just be sobbing because it's so hard to put yourself out there, but then for someone to come at you and just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available, or I'm not taking new clients. It is heart-wrenching. Because all you want is help. So my friend, she came to me and she said, hey, I'm going to give you my session. And I think you really are going to connect with this therapist. Take it, go, and let me know how it goes. And I will forever be thankful for her because it ended up going really well. And I started going to that therapist regularly every week for the next few months. And that's where I really got a lot of my growth in the beginning of my journey. So if you're listening to this, and you do struggle and you have not been able to find a therapist, keep going, keep trying. They're out there. You just have to keep pushing through. And also I mentioned friends. Friends really did push me. They pushed me to realize the tragedy I'd been through, but also the severity of what I had been through, and pushed me to get help as well. And again, all of you out there, I'm forever thankful to you. So once I started to do the work, life got a bit easier. Life got a bit lighter. Life got to be less tragic, Like I felt like I was living in this crazy universe for a while where my life was just crashing and burning. But once I started to do the work, things did start to turn up. I had stopped putting work in the forefront of everything, and I started to take a real look at my life. What did I need out of life? What did I want out of life? What was my dream? Up until that point, my dream was to have a great career, lots of money, and just live the life, right? And it was a pretty shallow dream. And now I know what I need in my life. I know what I want in my life, but it just wasn't the same for me back then. Now in the forefront is always my family. I always have my family in the forefront, and I also have my friends in the forefront. But ultimately, I also have myself up very high on that list. And I used to put myself very, very low on the list. You are just as important as the friends and the family and all the other people. So never forget that self-love and self-compassion is huge. It's huge. And a lot of times I know we like to put that on the back burner because we're thinking about everyone else, but don't do that. Always, first and foremost, put your mental health, your mind, your body, all of that very high on your priority list. I know I do. I used to not, but now I do. Because once you have your mind, body, and soul aligned and in good standing, you're going to start feeling a lot better. And then guess what? You're much more of value to your friends and family because you're the best version of yourself. And that's who they love. I mean, they love you for every part of you. Don't get me wrong. All of my friends love every dramatic part of me. But they also love the growth that they see in me. And then I can also be the best person for them that I'm supposed to be, So work on yourself, but also do not underestimate the value of family and good friends. So all that to be said, I got to a point where I was in that last job in Baltimore where I just took a look at my life. I had been going through therapy for a while. I was starting to feel a lot better when it came to my mental health, and I felt ultimately good. I had started losing weight. I had started putting myself first, and I thought, I really miss my family, and I really miss a lot of my friends. I had a lot of great friends in Baltimore. Some of the best people I've met were up there, but I missed the South. Oh my gosh, listen to me. If you heard me in the beginning of this, you heard me say, I was tired of the South. I was ready to get out of there. Yeah. So silly. And yes, I just made the fart noise on my podcast, but I had gotten so tired of it and I was ready to get out. And then Q 4, 5, 6, how many years it was, I don't remember. Later, I needed my people and I needed the South. I missed it a lot. So yeah. There's no place like home. I had ultimately decided it was time for me to get back to my family. We had gone on this Hawaii trip for my parents. They were celebrating 40 years of being together and they renewed their vows. And that was the first time I had spent more than a week with my family in the same house. It was all my siblings. I have 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the baby. And also my nephews were there. And some of my aunt and uncle was there as well. So it was I had a lot of people there. And it was the first time I had really been surrounded by them all at the same time for a very long time. It was about 10 days, I think. You know when you're with the family and you feel like you're going to pull your hair out sometimes, but it's amazing too. Yes, family can really rack your brain and just frustrate you, but they also are the best people for you a lot of the time, And some of you may have friends that are like that too, friends that are family, that they're more, right? They're just more. They're the people that you go to in troubles, but they're also the people that are going to be there when you're down and there to pick you up. They were all there for me. At that point, they had all knew about what I was struggling with and everyone was super supportive. When I got back up to Baltimore, it just felt wrong. It didn't feel right anymore. I felt this big hole that I had been filling with all of these different superficial things and jobs and money and stuff in my heart. It was empty. That hole was bigger and bigger and bigger. And I ultimately realized that I had to go home. I had to go back to my people. Because not only did I need my people needed me. And whether they told me that or not, they needed me. They just didn't say it. And I told my little nephew, Zachary, he's my pride and joy, 12 years old now. He's an old boy. I told him, I'm coming home for you. Because I will never forget that Christmas when he looked at me and he said, are you ever going to come home? And I almost about cried right there. So yeah, I decided to come back to Tennessee. So cue 2 years ago. That sounds right. Ugh, time is flying and it's exhausting. But yeah, back when I came down to Tennessee, that was when I started the blog. The blog started in 2019. I moved down here late 2018. I started working another job because, as you know, your girl loves to run into new jobs without thinking about it. And that job worked me to death. I came down here to Memphis. I started a job right out the gates. It was a big traveling job. I probably traveled over 50 to 75% of the time. I was rarely here, and I was constantly working. Again, deja vu, I know. It was back like my job originally, where all I was doing was working. So I went from a job where I was doing less crazy stuff, and it was closer to home, and I was working more on myself and choosing myself, into a job that, again, worked me to death. The sad part about all of that is that all the progress I had made on my mental health and all the progress I had made on my trauma kind of got fuzzy again because I had stopped making it a priority in my life again. I started prioritizing work, and I started prioritizing all of these things that are ultimately not what's going to be the best thing for me and my mental health and my body and my spirit. Like, all of that was messed up. So I was in that job for about 6-7 months. I actually ended up quitting it because it was too toxic for me. It was just not a great environment, and I was working all the time. And I really I had lost a lot of weight. So the one thing I will say is that when I first moved home, big priorities for me were my body, my spirit. I had started watching church. I had started prioritizing that stuff for a while, and that was great. But work took all of those things and made it a lot more difficult. I was always working. So once I quit my job, I made the blog, and I made the business, and I made my body and physical and mental health a priority again. The thing is I wish I could go back and just knock on my head and go, hey, what are you doing? Stop not prioritizing the things that are important to you. Work is important. I will say, having money, having food on the table, all of that is important. But don't forget to do your homework and make sure the job is the right fit for you, to ask the questions, because you have to prioritize your mental and physical health as well. You can't forget about that stuff just for a job, because you will end up worse off for it. I promise. I have been through it multiple times where I just run into a new job, not even thinking about it, not prioritizing myself, and then I drown. I drown in all of this exhaustion, and I'm back on the ground again in depression, and I have to pick myself back up. Making you a priority should never feel wrong. So don't let it feel wrong, because it's always the right move. It's always the right move. You may not be able to make the move tomorrow, but make it a priority. Talk to your boss, talk to the people in your life, and tell them these are the things you need to do in order to work on yourself, because you need to put yourself first. So I took my power back. I quit that job. I focused on myself. And I was sure I would be able to find something new soon, just given my experience level. And I was just willing to grind for it and find it. Well, I as life usually does not love to just do whatever you want it to, COVID happened. And unfortunately, within a month or two of my search, the job market just dove. It just crashed, burned, boom. Because COVID happened, there was people laying people off. It was wild. So I knew at that point that, couldn't go back. Couldn't go back and change that decision. But I knew it was going to be a while before I was able to find a job because everyone was looking at the time. So even more so than before, I had to make myself a priority because I couldn't get a position, a job, and it was tough. So I had some savings, I had some money left over, and I was okay for a while. I knew I would be okay by a certain point, and I made myself a priority and my business a priority and just started working on me. And the greatest thing to come out of all of that was the fact that I lost, at this point, 45 pounds. I was making more time for my soul, doing the things that I love. And I was working on my mental health again. I was writing more. A lot of times with my therapy, a big part of my therapy was always writing out my feelings, getting out my emotions. And when I did that, I was able to actually realize where a lot of this angst or drama or whatever was coming from. And through that, I was able to make progress. So I have had the most fulfilling year for self-love and self-compassion in 2020. That was one thing that I can be thankful for this crazy year, was that it gave me a lot of time to work on myself, and there was no more time for excuses. So thank you, 2020, for making me actually focus on myself and nothing else. But then, eventually, I did get to that moment where I was getting broke. I told you earlier, I had a point. I had a point where I was like, if I get here, I need a job because I will literally be so broke. And I got broke. So I looked into Nashville. I looked into Memphis. I was looking for jobs everywhere and I could not find one. So I got in touch with a friend that lived in Nashville, and I ultimately decided to move to Nashville, and she was looking for a new apartment at the time. So it honestly worked out perfectly. Our dogs loved each other. It was just a match made in heaven. Moved my butt to Nashville. And I started grinding. I went on so many interviews. I went on so many phone interviews, Zoom interviews, in-person interviews. Guys, I went on a lot. I had a lot. And I still came up with nothing. And the craziest thing to come out of this pandemic is that I scored a great job right now with a fellow old coworker at one of the companies I've worked for prior, and I'm actually working remotely in a contract marketing position for a company up in the Northeast. So the irony is not lost on me that I moved to Nashville in order to find a job, and then found a job in an old city I lived. Whatever. I mean, life does not love to just give you what you expect, right? It's always a curveball. There's always a twist. So I moved to a new city to find a job, found one in a different city. Remote working is pretty awesome, pretty cool, and I love it. What ended up happening was a few months down the road, when I was living there and working there, I again got that feeling of missing my family. I think when we get put in a corner or stuck in a corner, put against a wall, and we have to make a decision, a lot of times you have to look at the hard things and think, okay, well, I'm broke. What am I going to do? I had to get a job, and I wasn't finding any in Memphis. So yeah, I took my butt to Nashville. And then I guess a little birdie or whatever, maybe it was a sign, came down and gave me this olive branch that was the contracting job I got. And now I'm not even locked in to Nashville. So it was just one of those things, one of those moments where you're just like, oh, wow. Okay. So this is what I'm good at. I love working remotely. So I think that's something I probably will do for a long time. It is nice to have job security again. It is nice to have something going on. And I think we can all say that it's been a tough year, so it's great to have things that are more sturdy and more stable. So here we are with the news I promised you earlier. I am moving back to Memphis. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I am moving back to Memphis. So yeah, that's the news. I have told very few people, but I'm very excited to be back. And I've missed my family and my friends here. And it just feels right. It feels right this time. And overall, it just feels good. My heart has always been here. And I was always running all over the place. And like I said earlier, I had that hole in my heart. When I came back to Memphis, it filled up. A lot of times we underestimate the power and the value of good friends and good family. So don't ever do that. That's lesson number 1. Don't ever underestimate the value of your family and good friends in your life. You never really realize how much you missed your family and friends until you take time to think on it or until it's gone. I didn't realize until that Hawaii trip how much I had missed my family because I wasn't spending that much time with them. I can count on like my 1 and 2 hands how many times the whole time I was gone that I had come home, right? Because I was super far away. And I had to work, so I could only come home for the holidays. I sometimes came down for my birthday, but other than that, I was gone. So don't ever underestimate that because you will one day thank yourself for choosing it. I promise. Now, I'm not saying you have to move home or anything like that. That's not the point of this podcast. I'm not saying there's no place like home. Move home, everyone. But what I'm saying is don't underestimate it. Make a priority out of your friends and your family and reaching out to them and making sure they're important. For me, it's being near them. I missed being close to them physically and also in general. So don't ever underestimate them. Lesson 2 that I hope you get out of this podcast is never let work be your entire life, people. Please listen. Don't let it. I don't care if you're a doctor, an architect, or whatever, a pilot. I don't care what your job is. But don't ever let your job be your entire life because there is so much more out there in this life that you should be living. We're not here on this earth to work until we die. That's not why we're here. We're here to live. So remember to live, okay? Don't let your job be everything. And then lastly, 3rd lesson, live more fully and think more clearly. You guys might remember those 2 are blog categories on the blog, live more fully and think more clearly. I always like to make those 2 points because you need to make efforts to fill your life with better things every day. Do more things that you love. That will fill your soul up. And focus on your mental health. Don't ever take your mental health for granted. And take care of your body, okay? It's time to take your life back. Live more fully, think more clearly, take care of your body, focus on your mental health, and do more things that you love. Fill your life with better things, okay? Okay. So that was a lot. I think this is going to be a long podcast. I haven't edited it yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a long podcast because my last podcast was only 8 minutes. So I guess I just had a lot more to say. And my voice is better. As you can tell, my allergies have subsided. Thank goodness. All of that to be said, you guys have made it to the end. You have finished episode 5. There's no place like home. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I am so thankful for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the news, and hopefully you got something out of this podcast. If not, feel free to email me. I'm just kidding. Don't. Just kidding. Get back to your days. Get back to your days. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time. Love you. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, rate, review, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or pretty much anywhere you can listen to a podcast. For more from me and Cali Chats, visit www.calicreates.com. Or you can check me out on Facebook and Instagram at Cali Creates LLC. Thanks, and talk to you guys later. Bye.